Exercise saved my life. I could go out for a run or play basketball, eventually yoga and walking and swimming. I don't care how old you are, how fat you are, how infirm you are, move around. If
Yeah.
you don't, it'll kill you, right?
Yeah.
And the idle mind thing, it's 100% true. Read books, study, learn something new, take on some challenges. There's a million things you can do. The only thing you can't do is nothing. Don't sit around wallowing in your own filth. That'll kill you. And I've seen it kill a lot of guys. You want to find work? You want to find a job? I don't care what your resume says. I don't care where you went to school. I don't care if you went to school. Doesn't matter to me. I want to know the answer to one question, and that is, what's the hardest thing that's ever happened to you? Tell me that story and tell me how you came out the other side. Go. And sometimes I don't have to ask a second question, because I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you can do. I want to know who you are.
Right.
And without that, I can't help you. But with that, if you've got a work ethic and a level of integrity and personal accountability for your own success or failure, I can teach you anything.
All right, everybody, here we are. Have Mark Aylward on, and we're really excited to talk to him about a number of subjects that sometimes are taboo and men don't talk to it, but there's a lot of people dealing with it. And I'm so excited to have Mark on and tell us about his experiences and how he's gone through it, and how he's an executive coach and teaches accountability and really in the men's kind of mental health area, as well as divorced dads and what they're going through. So Mark, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Brad. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, we're going to get along fine. We did a little precursor to make sure that we could say whatever we want. So we're brothers from another mother. I'm pretty sure of that. So yeah. So people don't talk about it a lot because it's kind of a taboo thing, really. I mean, people say it's not, but it really is about just fatherhood and going through divorce and what that does to you, right? And what it does to your family, your kids, the legal aspects of it. It's a bear, man. It's 100% bear. And I know many people that gone through it, and it's unfortunate, but you've kind of built a good community around helping men, and I'm grateful for that. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that you cited a couple of the reasons I got into it, and I'll give you a little bit of context. I guess so I am a father of 3 young adult children and 1 grandson.
Oh, that's awesome.
And my career was spent in the staffing space. So I built and sold a couple of information technology staffing companies, and that's essentially helping people find better work. And it's the same conversation. It's taking someone from a place of, say, discontent, perhaps exaggerated discontent, pain of some kind, and moving them into a better place. So I discovered that when I got sole custody of my kids as my own attorney in my divorce, which will give you some insight into how contentious that must have been, I became mom and dad, and I had to move around. I had 3 kids that were playing sports and into extracurricular activities and different schools of friendship at different schools. And so I was all over the place. And I thought, how can I make a living not being able to go into an office and supervise people anymore? This was before, remote work had become so common, pre-COVID stuff. And I thought, I can coach people, because that's pretty much what I've been doing. I won't exchange the new job for money. I won't do the transaction, but I can uplift people, and I can pretty much help anybody, because we're all discontent with something. And some of us are really in pain. And I started to market to everybody, Brad, and I found out pretty quickly you can't market to everybody, because you won't market to anybody. And so, taking some advice from lots of different people, I started to niche down real specifically. And I thought, what's unique about me? Well, what I just described is pretty unique. And so, when I went looking around in my darkest time, I couldn't find any resources for men. All the resources were for women. And, God bless them. They deserve their resources. But I would walk around the courthouse, and I was in the courthouse a lot for 9 years. And I would see these guys, and they'd be sitting down, and they'd be bummed out or sad or angry or lost, usually all of the above. And I would occasionally walk over and just say, "Hey, can I help you out, man? Is there anything I can do for you? Are you looking to find a room? I know where everything in here is."
Yeah.
And and I felt like the response I got was, "Oh my God, thank you so much." And that wasn't even getting into any detail. That was just lending a hand. And I
Absolutely.
just remembered how impactful that was and how lonely it was for me. And it's not a, oh, woe is me, because I really wasn't lonely a lot. I was alone a lot, but I wasn't lonely a lot. I had good friends, good family. My kids and I are tight. So I was blessed in that regard. So I thought, let's do that, because I can do that with a phone. I can do that from the gymnasium. I can do that from the doctor's office. So that's how I got where I am today.
That's amazing. Well, I love the fact that there's a happy ending out of it and other good things come out of it. And I think that's, human nature. Like, we'll go into kind of I guess the dude mentality or the men mentality where you know, you kind of bury things down in, and then late at night, the demons or the monsters come to get you when no one's around, and
Mhm.
it's kind of taboo to talk about it. That's why I brought it up. I genuinely think, it's this whole kind of divorce is such an ugly thing, but this whole kind of all men are bad or all women are bad or all it's just kind of silly shit. I mean, to, to me, it's real world stuff, and the fact that you've put together an approach to help people not only in that area, but from a work perspective. There's a lot of pressure on everybody, but men tend to treat it a little bit different. So
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. I'm writing a book. I'm on version 7 of the manuscript. I'm almost ready to do final edits and publish. And I'm not pitching the book, but it's called No One's Coming.
yeah,
And it really is this notion that it's specific, directed to men, and it really tries to address this issue that you're talking about, which is when we were young. When I was young, you're a little younger than I, but we're same generation. I'll be 65 in a week, and I knew we never wondered what a man was. There was never any misunderstanding of what a man was. There was, you supported, you protected, you made the money, you took care of things, you made decisions, you helped people. There's nothing toxic about that,
right,
right? There are toxic people, but toxic and masculinity, they don't work in the same sentence. Masculinity is not toxic. Without
yeah,
masculinity, we're all dead, you know? So it's like we could get on a soapbox on that topic, but part of what I do is, to your point, suggest to men, you can still be a tough guy. You don't have to be a wimp to be vulnerable.
yeah,
Wimps whine, wimps aren't vulnerable. Wimps complain.
yeah,
That's not vulnerability is, let's be authentic, let's be transparent, let's talk, let's get this shit out on the table, and let's pick it apart and see what the root causes of your stuff is.
yeah,
Forget this symptomatic stuff, and don't worry about, this is confidential, this is private, but I've walked thousands of people through this conversation, and I've protected people's confidence my whole life. I'm not a gossip. I don't share any of this stuff with outside of
yeah,
the circle, but guys, particularly, and I focus, Brad, on successful men, so C-suite executives and founders in particular, because these guys, I'm one, right? I founded my own
yeah,
company twice and haven't reported to anybody in well over 25 years. And we're used to making decisions. We're used to getting shit
yeah,
done. We're used to just, 7-figure decisions and fixing stuff, solving problems. And then when you get this, there's no benchmark for this. There's no,
yeah,
oh, I know what this is. It's all like, what the fuck is going on? You know? And and I don't care how smart you are, that flips you upside down. What do I do? What do I do? And then on top of that, every man has experienced this. When you get emotional, when you get angry or fearful or sad or anxious, just pick a negative emotion. That is no place to be making big decisions.
right,
You need to be in an objective frame of mind. And one of the things I help guys do is just step off that ledge and go, okay, wait a second. The world's not coming to an end. It's going to be okay. I'm on the other side of this. I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to steer you wrong, but I'm also not going to give you advice. I'm going to make observations. I'm going to share what worked for me. I'm going to share what didn't work for me. You got to make your own decisions. But man, when you're in that state, and anger was a big part of that for a while, and I'm glad that's been gone for a long time. You can't make the right decision. You make the wrong decisions because you're emotional.
Right.
And so that's part of what I do.
Yeah, and I mean, be honest, it's tough not to be emotional when you're dealing with relationship issues, right? Or you're dealing with some legal process that may take, in your case, you're fighting it for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wears on you. I mean, and
It does.
it's okay to be logical and realistic, but at some point, people break.
Yes.
Enough's enough. So
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
deal with that? Like, how do you tell somebody? And I don't believe in all this ego-driven bullshit and all, the Freudian bullshit or whatever. And I was a psychology major in college. So anyways, I still don't believe in a bunch of that shit. But the reality of it is, whether you want to call it ego-driven versus letting that go or taking the accountability to try to focus on yourself, what do you tell someone like this, that, their world's kind of, it seems like it's falling apart. Maybe it's not falling apart, but it sure as hell seems like it. When
Yeah.
3 of those gems that you have, those beautiful creatures that you help create, you can't get to them, or you have a limit to when you can see them. You're almost treated like an enemy when you're not. So what do you tell
Well,
those guys?
yeah. Well, I tell people I was guilty until proven innocent the whole time. I actually was escorted out of my home the evening of the day I filed for divorce. She was served in the morning, and the cops came to my house at 6 o'clock that night and said, there's a domestic violence injunction that's been filed against you, and you need to come with us. And I couldn't see my kids until the trial was over, which was 6 weeks. And I couldn't call them. I couldn't come within 500 feet of them. And she did that 3 times, all bullshit and no consequences. So I was going to say, take what you just described and put 3 children in the middle of it. And if you've ever lost sight of your kid at the supermarket, or someone's ever threatened your kid on a playing field or whatever, you lose your shit, right? It's one thing to protect yourself. It's another thing when someone comes after your kids. And she used them as a cudgel, as a weapon against me for 9 years. And it's the reason I filed, is because what was happening pre-file was abuse. It was less physical than it was emotional, but it was still abuse.
Yeah.
So I can say to any guy, I'm on the other side. There is another side. I'm not. This isn't theoretical. You're looking at a guy who survived and is flourishing, and so it's totally feasible and possible. And there's a lot of things that I would say, but I think the first thing is to just really do that cliche, which is, what do you have control over, and what do you not have control over? And if you try and exercise control over things over which you have no control, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So knock that shit off, right? And I don't kid glove this stuff. This is, if you're not ready for candor, I can't help you, right?
Yeah.
And so these are what I leaned on. Number one was my faith. And if you don't have that, there's alternatives to that. Just get into a place where it's not all about you anymore. The war, it's much bigger than you, much bigger, right? And if you have kids, just the only thing you have to think of is what's in the best interest of the children. Every decision you make should be able to bump up against that, right? Then you got meditation. Then you got prayer. Then you got exercise. Exercise saved my life. I could go out for a run or play basketball, eventually yoga and walking and swimming. I don't care how old you are, how fat you are, how infirm you are, move around. If you don't, it'll kill you. Right.
Yeah.
And the idle mind thing, it's 100% true. Read books, study, learn something new, take on some challenges. There's a million things you can do. The only thing you can't do is nothing. Don't sit around wallowing in your own filth. That'll kill you. And I've seen it kill a lot of guys. I'm sure you have friends, Brad, divorced or not. At our age, everyone's fat. Everyone's on prescription drugs. People aren't moving around. They're watching too much TV. I mean, it's all common sense, right? But I can help you get objective about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think, I was an athlete a long time ago, and, I've spent some time in my life where I was not in very good shape and didn't
Me
take
too.
care of myself, and, I can tell you just from the clarity, not only the physical aspects about living longer and all that, lowering blood pressure and all that stuff, it's an outlet for me. Like, it's something I enjoy to go do, right? And I think you just kinda it's my spiritual time. My wife always laughs because she's like, "Well, you spend a lot of time in there or whatever." I'm like, I'm literally I balance on this ball at the end of the time I'm ever doing it. It's like my spiritual time where I'm just
Mhm.
kinda not a big yoga guy. I think if I came into a yoga class, women would be a little bit scared or worried about what I was doing in there, but, it's true. It's definitely good for
Well,
anybody to do that.
it's, I'm 6'4", 230 pounds, so I'm not a tiny guy, and,
Yeah,
I walked into when I started looking around for a Catholic church because I hadn't gone to church in 35 years, and now I've been going for years now every Sunday, and it's been a blessing, no pun intended. I even have a good story about going to confession for the first time and the little Puerto Rican priest that treated me like a saint. And, but I was a basketball player, and a pretty good intramural player at Notre Dame where there were a lot of pretty good basketball players.
yeah,
And, I played all the time. But
yeah,
eventually you can't do that anymore, especially when you can't get around a guy that you used to be able to blow by 10 years ago. And you're like, this is not good.
yeah,
And so I started walking. And then I thought, my daughters, one of them's a yoga instructor. They both practice. They've been telling me for years, Dad, try it. You'll like it. I'm telling you, try it. You'll like it.
yeah,
Well, the thing about yoga is it has nothing to do with competition.
yeah,
And that's all I was ever about was I'm competitive as hell. And so I
yeah.
had to get over that bridge. But I walked into like 5 different yoga studios and I'm like, this is for chicks, man. This is not for me. This is for chicks. And then I walked into the YMCA and I was like, weightlifting, basketball, running track, second floor, 3 sides windows with palm trees, and a wooden floor that was shining. And I'm like, I think this is my place. And, and I
I
and
love
I
it.
and I did it for 3 years. And
Uh,
so now I can do it on my own. And I have a yoga mat in my back room, and I don't do it every day, but it's basically just meditation and stretching.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, which I find as I get older, I do a lot more resistance and stretching than you would have done as a younger person, so,
I
I mean,
should have
obviously,
done.
so get out there, to men that I mean, I think that's a pretty consistent story to people. I think it's one of those things where you believe it's harder than it is or that it's something that you can't do because you're an athlete. I was an athlete. I grew up in a gym.
Me
To
too.
me it's like a second home, right? It's you don't feel uncomfortable, but you find a lot of people that haven't done that are judging themselves on what other people look like or where they're at in their journey, but
Yeah,
I don't
that
know.
and but I would add to that, and you're absolutely 100%. I mean, even as a smell, it has an aura,
Yeah,
and but you could just as easily work in the garden. I was
yeah,
like yesterday morning, I got up and I pulled out the lawnmower and I spent an hour and a half in the yard pulling vines and cutting grass and weeding. I mean, you don't gardening is meditative as well. You just get out,
absolutely.
breathe some fresh air, get out in the sun. Even
Yeah,
if you've have no athletic experience at all, everyone can go for a walk, right?
yeah.
Just move around.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you went there, and I think it's really important. I mean, I think faith and all these things that happen to you in life, because there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happened to you that may not be relationship oriented, could be business, could just be things you're dealing with. I find that my faith often, levels me up or gets me, to foundational and, talk a little bit about that. I was raised Catholic just like you, and I had a pretty interesting experience when I was probably like 12 or 13. I had to do my first confession. I didn't like it. I didn't go back. But
Mhm.
the priest was an awesome guy. He was a friend of the family, really good guy. He's like, "Oh, you're not going to come back to confession?" I was like, I don't know. It's just so odd to me, to be honest with you. I just
Yeah.
can't do it." So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was raised Catholic. My father still goes to church every day. He's going to be 98 in September. He drives his own car to church, doesn't take any prescription medicine. And I promise you that one of the reasons he's still up and around and smiling is his faith. No
yeah,
question about it. My uncle was a Catholic priest. I had two uncles that were Catholic priests and one aunt that was a nun. And I got kicked out of public school with my brother in fifth grade and stuffed into Catholic school. We think Jim and Mark need a bit more discipline.
You
Best thing
came to
that
the
ever
right
happened to
place.
me. Yeah. The nuns used to that's back when they hit you with rulers when you
Absolutely.
misbehaved, and we wore ties and stuff. And then I went to Notre Dame, which is a
Yeah.
Catholic university, but I think I went to church when I was in college like once.
Yeah.
So after I left my house at 17/18, I didn't go to church for 35 years. I still prayed all the time, but I was not a faithful Catholic. And I felt a little guilt about that, but I remained faithful. It remained my kind of benchmark. It's like Jordan Peterson likes to say, even if you're not religious, just take the 10 commandments and push the first 4 off to the side and live that by the next 6, and you'll have a pretty good life. So I don't suggest to people that they have to believe in God, because who the hell am I to suggest that to anybody, right? And that's up to them. But I can tell you it's really worked wonders for me. And I'm not, I love the priest that says the only thing, what we all have in common in this room right here, this church, we're all sinners. So if you have your arms around faith, I don't care what religion or what denomination, you have an understanding of forgiveness, you have an understanding of service, you have an understanding of kindness and helping other people that need help. And if you're blessed with things, then you're also blessed with the obligation to give those things to other people in terms of support. So, and we said it in the pregame, that serving other people thing, as selfless as it might sound, it's also, for me, it's pretty selfish, because I don't know of anything, couple things maybe that we don't need to talk about here, that make me feel better than helping someone else.
Yeah.
So, and I also find that when I'm down, which doesn't happen very often, thank God, no pun intended, I try to think about the things I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And what I find, Brad, is that list gets really long, really quick.
Yeah.
And when you're in a state of gratitude, and I think this is scientifically proven, you can't occupy that space with any other negative emotion. Gratitude takes up all your space. So that's another thing I do with guys. I said, let's just get out a pad of paper and a pencil, put the iPad away. Writing this stuff down is better, and just make a list. And I've had guys start crying, because we don't think about that all the time. But when we do, it's like, holy shit, I got a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah, I was going to I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No.
I was going to say, I was going to comment on that is, and you said it, we don't think about it. We don't put time set aside to think about that. So every morning or every night, think about the things you're grateful for that day. And it could be small. I mean, it could be as simple if you're pretty, and an inch of water, maybe you had a good coffee, or you like the coffee, or you like the conversation you had with the guy or girl or wherever. I mean, there's a lot of things there, but I always tell people, and this is not really, wasn't meant to kind of be this, but I think maybe for other men that may help them, is like people ask me, I'm like you, I was raised Catholic. I'm not a big churchgoer guy, very spiritual, but I know, like my kids, you talk about witnessing, right? I mean, I don't think witnessing, you have to go out and, preach, whatever you're doing. But my kids always asked me when they were growing up, well, why do you believe? Like, why do you believe in God? What is it? Now, and I can point back to times in my life that there's no way my skill set, my knowledge, my intellect, my physical capabilities, whatever it was, that what just happened to me wasn't divine. Statistically, no chance of that happening, right?
Yep.
It wasn't because I was some smart guy. And I think letting go sometimes of that, I got to control everything. I'm the guy, I'm the whatever, is very, very wise and helpful to you to realize that some things happen, and you definitely, that no control side, that wasn't you. That had no impact to what you've done or your career or how great you are. So I don't know.
No
I just
question.
share that with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I completely agree. I think there's no such thing as coincidence. Things happen for a reason, and the cliches, like man makes plans and God laughs. I mean, we're all connected in some capacity. And I think that I was just talking to a guy and he said to me, I haven't talked to anybody in a long time, Mark, that smiles as much as you do. And I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can energize somebody else with a smile. You can energize them with a handshake. You can energize them with a kind look, and I think, it's funny with going back to the yoga thing. When I first got on the yoga mat, I was like, oh, I can hold this pose longer than anybody in this fucking room. I'm like, no, dude, that's not what this is about. And the day I overcame that, and I just said, I don't know. I don't think there's anyone else in this room. No one's looking at me. I don't give a shit. I'm just in my space. It all just shifted. It became what it felt like it was supposed to be, which is you can lie down on that mat on your back and close your eyes and stare at the ceiling for a half hour. No one cares. Do whatever you need to do. And that was a big deal. And that's the analogous situation in the Catholic scene was the time I decided after starting to go to church again to go to confession. And if you want to hear that story, I can tell it. But it's
I mean, tell it, man. It's great. I think it was such a, it was just such an odd thing, having a 12, 13-year-old kid talk like, well, I said shit 15 times. Whatever. I punched my brother. I mean, it was just such a, like, to me, there's a point where I don't know if maybe now when I'm like 20s, 30s, 40s, yeah, I need to confess a whole bunch.
Well, you know what I would suggest, try it, if the mood strikes you, or don't. But it's like my experience was all about the specific priest, right? There's this little Puerto Rican guy, Father Hector. He's no longer with the parish. I don't know where he went, but he used to talk about Star Wars and NFL football in his sermon. And I'm like, I like this guy. And, too many Catholic priests are boring, or, they're just like fatalistic, and when people tell me they had a bad experience as a Catholic, not that you had a bad one, but that I hear it all the time. And I'm like, that's not the experience I had. But I can understand it, because gloom and doom is a choice, right? Guilt, wallowing in guilt. That's not what guilt is for. Guilt is a benchmark. It's not for wallowing. It's like forgiveness. You move on. That was the wrong thing to do. It was the wrong thing to do. Apologize if you have to. Don't if it doesn't matter, and move on, right? But I can see the darkness, and I can see that. But I walked up to this guy after Mass and I said, Father, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, when do you hear confessions? And he looked at me. He was like 5 foot nothing, and I'm 6'4", and he's like, how about right now? I'm like, okay. And I didn't have time to decide not to do it. I'm sure he did that on purpose, because he knew if I walked away, he thought to himself, he might not come back because of what you said, right? It's not, I wasn't looking forward to it. I was kind of scared and guilty, and in a hypocritical way. But he said, he grabbed this purple sash and he said, let's go outside. There's a shade tree out there. It's a pretty cool place to do this. And I said, and I forgot I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what the protocol was. I didn't know anything. And I just said, I feel real bad. I haven't been to confession in like 35 years. And he said, well, you don't have to be specific. And Mark, by the way, I've been a priest for like 40 years. I'm sure you have nothing to tell me that I haven't heard before. Okay. So just chill out. He was so cool, Brad. It was so much about him. And then it became about me. And he said something in Latin. And he said, I want you to say 3 Hail Marys by the end of today. And that was my penance. And I'm like, holy shit, 35 years of the shit that I did. And I got 3 Hail Marys and I'm clean slate. Are you kidding me? And then I go to shake his hand and he pushes my hand aside and he goes, nah, we hug. And he bear hugs me, this little guy. He puts his arms around me. I got out of that place, Brad. I was floating in the air. My feet were not touching the ground. I called my father. I called my children. I called my uncle, who's a priest. I called my friends. I was like a child in a candy room. Yeah. I'll never forget it to this day. And interestingly enough, I haven't gone since, but talking about it right now makes me think I probably should try it again. But I think that if you find the right guy, it'll make a difference. And everything that you're worried about, everything that was scaring you and making you uncomfortable, and now that you're older, I think that might change it for you. So give it some thought.
Yeah, well, it might be just for the sake of, the whole old saying, get it off your chest, right? And, we talked back about, the ego, use old Freud again. But y keeping that stuff to yourself and not talking to anyone, because I talk to people like, if you tell me something, I'm not telling anyone.
Yeah, me too.
And one of my partners, like, he's business partners, him and my wife talk quite a bit, and he's like, "Oh, well, did Brad tell you this or whatever?" And she's like, "He didn't tell me anything." And he calls me and goes, "Oh, you didn't tell your wife that?" I'm like, "Dude, if you tell me something, unless you specifically say, 'Hey, this is shareable,' or 'You should talk to so and so about it,' or 'It's okay,' I ain't saying shit." So if
Yep,
there's a buried body anywhere, I'm not telling anybody. I'm
yep.
taking it to my grave, kind of a
No,
deal. But it's hard.
yeah.
It's just,
Yeah,
you know,
there's definitely a component of that because keeping stuff inside of you is not healthy. I don't care what it is, and there's plenty of ways to share it with other people. But in the business I was in, when you're talking to people about their work and how much money they make and who makes the decisions and what's important to them, you can't share that stuff with other people.
no.
You just can't. It's
No.
or people will stop telling you stuff. You know.
Absolutely. If it's all about trust, right? And
Hmm.
it's, it's so funny because the words today, like when we grew up, like, were you loyal? Were you trustworthy? Did you
Hmm.
have my back? All these things, about what we grew up thinking like was part of being a man, right? A
Hmm.
man, right?
Hmm.
You never ratted people out. You didn't do that. And it's a shame today because I don't hear a lot of that in the internet or writings about loyalty or true friendship or true honesty. And I think that's also it's confusing for some of the young people in the world to those kind of moral fabric or moral background. Like they don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I think it's an epidemic, and I think it's one of the reasons I'm in the right place at the right time because not only I believe I'm well suited for this work from a standpoint of my personality, my upbringing, and my experience and my enjoyment level.
Yeah,
Um, Human connection is, I think, the next currency. I think we're so hungry and thirsty for human connection. And with that comes authenticity and transparency, because without those two things, it's not really a human connection, right?
right.
It's something else, it's less than that. And I think that I said to somebody the other day, I made most of my money shaking people's hands and looking them in the eye. And I don't do that anymore. But when I do, it's like this guy I just talked to. He's like, I haven't had a conversation this enjoyable in a long time, Mark. And I
Yeah,
said, well, thank you so much for saying that. And it's just because I was just being me.
yeah,
There was no performance. I
yeah,
didn't, I wasn't charging him any money. He was just a colleague, you
yeah.
know? And so as simple as that sounds, I think that's coming back. I think face-to-face meetings and group meetings and things of that nature are right around the corner.
Yeah, I mean, young men and women too, they miss out on that. When we were younger, I mean, if you were in business, you were meeting someone, you were physically there in a meeting or going to lunch or whatever you were doing, going to dinners, things like that. And I think, the whole COVID-19 thing separated a lot of that and actually hurt a lot of people from in a development stage from younger kids. I've got kids as well. It really impacted them. And so I can't stand this IRL in real life. Like
Mm.
that's a term, some acronym in real life, IRL. And I'm like, what is this bullshit? Like, what do
Yeah.
you everything like this is not a Disney movie. Like this is
Yeah.
real life,
Yeah. Yeah. Don't kid
it's so
yourself.
funny
Yeah.
how we'll turn something into an acronym and someone will try to sell it as a new concept. So,
Well, it's funny because, like, with my kids, so they're 28, 29, 32, 36.
yep,
So they're not young kids, but they're young adults. But they grew up with phones, they grew up with
yeah,
keyboards, they grew up with screens, and they love to text. And I fat
yeah.
finger text all the time. I can't if they text me something and I text back, and it's usually either an emoji or one I don't even spell the word okay. It's just K. I hate that shit. If they text me again, I pick up the phone and I call them because
Yeah,
I'm not doing this. I'm not
yeah.
playing typewriter with you. You want
It
to talk to me? You're
yeah.
talking to me.
It's so funny the different, generations, because I was one of the Gen X guys. Like, so we grew up before the internet, before phones. Then we've been here with all the tech stuff, and we have a technology company. That's our business in another area that's been around for a long time. But I'm the same way. I get so fuddled over stuff where I'm like, if it's important, you need to pick up the phone and call me. Like, do not text me about something. Do not, write some paragraph in a text. If it's important and urgent, or something that, needs conversation about it, please do not text me. But I've had a hard time trying to train in some of these people around doing
Well,
that.
you know what's interesting about what you just said is the byproduct of that is you also get to decide and determine and define together what is important mean
Yeah.
to you, what is urgent, what is an emergency, because
Yeah.
what you need right now, that's not a fucking emergency, okay? That can wait until tomorrow. So the opportunity, because this is another one of my pet peeves, is what do words mean? We misuse words all the time. Like,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, that's urgent. All right. Do you have a dictionary? Look it up in the dictionary. That is it urgent now? No, right? It's not. It's something else, right?
Nobody's dying. Nobody needs medical care. Yeah, those are urgent things, right?
Well, you played football. You probably wore a T-shirt. They were red in my high school and it said "No pain, no gain." And that was
Absolutely.
what the football guys wore.
It-
And what if you didn't play football and you played other sports, it's like, get up, stop whining, rub some dirt on it. If I don't see any blood, you're fine. Get back out in the field. And there's this crossroads today. And I don't consider myself mean. I don't consider myself arrogant. I don't consider myself toxic. However, like if I hired a bunch of people, I built 2 companies and sold them for 7 figures, right? I had a lot of interaction with people that reported to me that I had to train and help them become better, make more money and serve more people. And I love the hell out of it. I enjoyed it. But if I never cared, and I talk about this in the staffing space, which I don't really live in anymore, but it's part of me, is like, you want to find work, you want to find a job, I don't care what your resume says. I don't care where you went to school. I don't care if you went to school. It doesn't matter to me. I want to know the answer to one question, and that is, what's the hardest thing that's ever happened to you? Tell me that story and tell me how you came out the other side. Go. And sometimes I don't have to ask a second question, because I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you can do. I want to know who you are.
Right.
And without that, I can't help you. But with that, if you've got a work ethic and a level of integrity and personal accountability for your own success or failure, I can teach you anything.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love to teach. So
Yeah.
we're good.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing going on. I mean, I have kids very much close to you, 35 down to 21. That's a big thing in the younger generation of, like, they'll go to college and I don't know, they'll get a finance degree or accounting degree or liberal arts degree or whatever. And they think, like, well, that's what you've got to be, or that's what you've got to do. And that's so untrue. Like,
Mhm.
I had no business getting into the technology software space, certainly had no business getting into the lifestyle podcast, whatever we do now. It just naturally happens. But you're right. If you have the drive or the ambition to it, and I think we've got a lot of younger people that are lost because of that. Like, it's okay. It's okay if you don't know anything about whatever you're doing,
Yep.
trade school, trades, software, engineering, whatever it is,
Mhm.
it's okay. Because if you
Yes.
have the gumption that it's something you're interested in or you like, or you just like the people, you'll figure it out, and you will become an expert in whatever you put your time and effort to. And
Yep.
nowadays, you and I went to the library and was looking up something in, the Britannica Encyclopedia for information. We had to go do that. Now I'm like, dude, you can, like, literally learn how to fix your car on a YouTube video if
Yes.
you have that
Yes.
propensity. So in some ways it's better, some ways it's probably not. But
Well, one of the things I do with the guys that I coach is to help them with that particular issue, and that's like that you're in a box.
yeah,
We're all in a box, and most of us put ourselves in that box, and most of us did it because of the opinion of someone else who meant well, which was a father, a mother, a teacher, a mentor, a coach, who didn't really know much about us, and they just thought, well, this is what I think might be the best for you. Like if my father wanted me to be a lawyer, my father wanted me to be a doctor, whatever. My father was an airline pilot and a fighter pilot. He didn't give a shit whether I was a pilot or not. He wanted me to be happy. But I help guys go, let's talk about your box, and let's go. If you're a project manager in a healthcare company, just as a for instance, most of my guys are much more senior than that. But for example, that means like 80%, maybe 85% of those skills are transferable into any other job you can think about.
Okay.
Let's write them down. Let's write them down and see. Because all those people normally do is they look for another job as a project manager in the healthcare space.
Absolutely.
And that's like 1/100th of the potential opportunities that you have. So right out of the gate, we limit ourselves with that kind of thinking. And then the other thing is, another thing is, how do you know who's telling the truth in life? And that's a big deal right now because like almost no one is, right?
Yeah.
And so my kids would come to me because their mother and their father were saying two completely different things. And I will jokingly suggest to you that I was always right and she was always wrong. But
here we go.
But
Here we go.
the more important thing is, I said, look, this is what I do. I look at what people do and I listen to what they say. And when those two things are the same, you will often find integrity there. And when those two things are different, you will often find a lack of integrity there. And I said, it doesn't work 100% of the time, but it's like 99% of the time.
Yeah.
So just look for that. And I find, I can hear my father now, keep it simple. That's one of his big deal. Keep it simple. Don't complicate it. That's the simplest way to tell whether someone's telling you the truth. And it's really benefited me my whole life. And I told him to do it with me, do it with everybody, do it with teachers, do it with friends, do it with your mom, do it with me, everybody.
Yeah. Well, and integrity is kind of like the dinosaurs. It's going extinct if you believe in dinosaurs. But at the end of the day, I think that's good advice for everyone. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good advice because I tell my kids this. I'm like, whatever you do, I don't care if you're working for Blimpies. This is not sponsored by Blimpies, but you're getting a free thing, by the way. Just make that clear. We're sponsored by absolutely no one. But anyways, learn the business. You're not just making sandwiches. Learn the business. Know how much it costs to make that. Ask them things, because if you can figure that out and you're that curious, you can learn any business, and then your value to whether you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to start your own thing one day. Like people, I'm pouring concrete. Know the business.
Yep.
Know the business, and then you can do whatever you want to do, right? And it's transferable. I had a kid that was in the commercial kind of roofing business, and I said, whatever you do, learn that. Like learn everything about it, what the costs are, the structures are, how to do it. And I think people don't go deep sometimes. They think, oh, it's kind of like that. I forget the movie, but he says, well, right now I'm washing lettuce, but pretty soon I'll be the fry guy. And that's when the big money starts rolling in, right?
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yeah. No, it's the topic of mentorship is, it makes me think of my mentor, and it makes me think of Mike Rowe. I don't know if you know Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy.
Oh yeah.
He's big on the trades. He's big on working with your hands. It's like, man, work for a mentor, doing whatever. Like my guy taught me how to build and sell an IT staffing company because I did it under him and had a piece of equity in his business. I remember him coming to me one day saying, you want to help me start a consulting firm? And I said, tell me what a consulting firm is and I'll give you an answer. And he goes, well, I tell you what, this is what it is. And this is what I'd propose. I'll fund everything. I'll pay for everything. I'll pay you a salary. I'll give you a piece, and you be the tactician. You hire, fire, train, develop, sales calls, recruiting, operations. And man, he gave me a PhD in about 2.5 years while paying me 6 figures. And I busted my ass for him, and it worked out great for both of us, And so I tell all the young people I bump into and the older people as mentors, find a mentor, go attach yourself to someone who's succeeding already at something that you want to do, and just give him or her the commitment that you'll work your ass off as long as we don't cross any moral boundaries. I'll do whatever you ask me to do,
Yeah.
and let's grow this thing together. And then I walked out of that with a big fat check and a
Mm.
confidence to start my own business. And
That's awesome.
it's so simple,
Yeah.
it's not easy because in my experience, most of the things, all the things that I've accomplished that I would be able to call worthwhile were very hard, but they were very simple. And the only thing that it required was taking small steps consistently every day for a long period of time.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. I was very fortunate to have good mentors early in my life in business. Absolutely. Because I was not formally trained in any of the things that I did. But so that's great. And it's also, I think as you and I, as we get older, people get older, that mentorship becomes more natural, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of the younger people that really anyone can mentor you. You could be a great 25-year-old, really good at whatever you are, and you're going to mentor a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, whatever. Anyone can be a mentor in
Mhm.
anything, sport, business, whatever it may be. It's knowing when that someone's not in competition, and it's your kind of duty to bring the next guy up or the next
Mhm.
lady up or the next girl up, whatever it is. And I think a lot of people don't internally kind of understand that. As I get older, that's one of my favorite things, taking somebody and
Me too.
helping them
It's it
be what they potentially could be. Because a lot of times you'll see that guy that helped you, he saw something in you that there's no way he could have just seen it from a conversation and
Yep.
believed in you, and that's a skill. So
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful thing to be, both an apprentice and a mentor, and,
yeah,
I mean, it's the way we learned all the trades back in the day.
right,
Everyone mentored, so you didn't just become a blacksmith, you worked for one for 5 years, and
yeah,
then you hung up your shingle, you know?
yeah.
So I think that's another thing I try to tell my son a lot because he's still trying to figure out what he wants to be, is, we're in Florida, man. Learn how to fix an HVAC unit, and you'll never have an unpaid bill again. You know,
Abso
so and
absolutely.
and you know what? If you really want to take on the responsibility, I would bet you it's 5 years. It's the whole 10,000 hour rule, right? two
Yeah,
thousand hours a year, 5 years, 10,000 hours. You're an expert. Now, do you want the
absolutely.
responsibility of operations and payroll? Put up a shingle and hire your own staff, and then your hands will come off and your brain will go on. And if you just want to keep working with your hands, that's a six-figure income, you know?
Yeah, and money's important, right? I mean, money's important. They keep getting a lot of it with this inflation and stuff, but money's important. But I always tell people as well is like it's okay not to know what you ultimately want to be, but you in the downtime you need to be doing something. Like, you need
Mhm.
to do something because that's where you learn and you determine where you wanna go or what you wanna be or what you're ultimately I laugh and tell my kids, they're like, "Oh, you've done, like, this stuff." I'm like, "I'm really not sure what I wanna be yet." I wanna
Yeah.
keep growing. I wanna keep trying to find, something kind of evolving into something that you're like, "Oh, shit, I never would have thought of this," or, "I never would have done this if I listened." My mom wanted me to work for Coca-Cola. "Go work
Yeah.
for Coca-Cola." Hey, nothing wrong with Coca-Cola, and this is not sponsored by Coca-Cola. But that was her idea, right? You go to the corporate world, you get in a good company, and I'm grateful that I, didn't do that. Not that
Yeah.
Coca-Cola's not a great place to work, but it's just you figure it out. You keep going. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it is, and this is what I find with guys as well, even later on in life. It's like it's if it's not about the journey, then what is it about?
yeah,
It's if it's not about striving to get better, then what is it about?
yeah,
And if you already know everything, well, you're an idiot because nobody
yeah,
does. So and guys coming out the other end of divorce, what I find is there is a rebuilding. There's like a who am I now?
yeah,
Because yesterday it was us and we, and now it's me. Who's
yeah,
that guy? Well,
yeah,
let's figure that out because you can't live the rest of your life without figuring that out. And
yeah.
maybe all you'll do is continue to start trying to figure that out. But let's not sit idly and pretend we're the same guy we were yesterday because we're not.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
it's and this too as a previous athlete and businessman. It's hard to disassociate your identity with something that I'm a family guy. I'm a father. I've been that for 35 years. And you've got your kind of environment with what you feel as parenthood or family or what a family should like. it's hard when you're forced or willingly disassociate that, and it's kind of an I'm sure for a lot of people, it's an identity I don't call it identity crisis, but an identity challenge,
It
right?
is. It
So,
is. Yeah, you have people take sides, right? You have people that disappear. You have people that come to play and support you. Like, you find out who everybody is. If you were uncertain at all about who people
right,
were, you find out fast.
yeah,
And then their acceptance is a gift, right? Sometimes acceptance is just the best you can do, because that also acknowledges this is not something I have any control over. And if
right,
someone's going to choose to judge me, then they're probably not really one of my good friends to begin with, you know?
right.
So that's a very entangling thing, this identity that you speak of. And something I spend a ton of time on with guys.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I also think, I always hated this kind of no one's coming for you, no one's coming to save you, right?
Hmm.
Or, they kind of like make it like a life or death thing. But the reality of that is it's somewhat true. And going
Hmm.
back to your kind of real approach, right? How you've structured your real kind of steps is you kinda have to be accountable for yourself, and that's everyone.
Hmm.
You have to be accountable for yourself, right? And that's a hard lesson for kids to learn because your parents have taken care of you or someone's helped you. Business-wise, you've been in a good situation. Taking on that accountability for yourself, I think it's scary for a lot of people, to be honest
Well,
with
it
you.
is, and it's one of the great things about sports, you know, it's like even team sports, because let's just say basketball. I mean, yeah, you got a team, you got another 4 guys, you got a coach, you got people coming off the bench, you got help, but you step up to that free throw line with no time on the
Yeah.
clock. Guess what? That's all you, brother.
It's like
You know?
as the old Michael Jordan, he missed more shots than he took kind of a deal. I mean, that's it too. It's a numbers
Yeah.
game. You're
Mhm.
not gonna we have this I coached sports for 22 years, and we always had this kids always had expectations that they were gonna go, winning season, never lose a game, and they had a few of those, over
Mhm.
22 years. But I was like, you have to set your expectations. Winning every game, scoring every touchdown, scoring every point is not realistic.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
never going to happen for you in your life. And perfection, you can try to achieve perfection. I got news for everybody. You're not going to get perfection
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
ever in
Yeah.
life. And I think leading kids down that way, leading young people down that way is, hey man, do all you can to get as close as you can, and that is gonna be pretty good. You're
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
alright.
it's arriving is not the goal, it's continuing to strive, I think, and, you know, I was thinking about the fatherhood topic as well, and I was thinking, you know, the thing that I write a lot about it, I experienced it myself, I have this phrase I use, "We need to be reminded far more than we need to be taught new things,"
Yeah,
and so everybody knows this, but it's like, you can say whatever you want to your kids, but
yeah,
they're gonna watch you. Right?
yeah,
They're gonna model their behavior after your behavior. You'll hear them now and then use one of your phrases. "Oh my gosh, I sound just like dad," you know?
yeah,
But more than anything, they're out in the world and they're behaving the way they're behaving because of the way they saw you behave.
yeah,
And that's the hardest thing, one of the hardest things to hang on to when your world explodes, is
yeah,
this behavior. It's like, be consistent, pretend they're watching no matter where you are and what you're doing. Just pretend they're right there.
yeah.
And that takes a lot of work.
Absolutely, yeah. Fatherhood, people ask me out of the stuff that I've done in my life, I would say that, being a father is the greatest thing I've ever done. And, I that's people could say, well, you can look at it as, well, it's not easy or it's hard, one of the two. But it is definitely a reflection of how you treat people, how you do business, your ethics, your integrity, like you talked about. Those things is what I think really is important for a man to be, regardless of. And if you do those things, and you've been a good example, not only for your kids, but or your coworkers or people coming up. So I
You know,
love words like integrity and ethics and things like that, because as you said, a lot of that shit's thrown out of the window these days for, well, how much money are you going to make,
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
right?
it's hard to, it's hard to behave properly in the face of challenge and hardship and anger and deceit and things like that. But that's when you really find out who you are. And I would say, test yourself. It's another thing it's simple, right? It's
Yeah.
just simple, but it's very difficult. And one of the things that I try and help guys with is just like have some level of awareness, about your behavior. Because when you're in that kind of situation, and I experienced this, one wrong word, one bad tone of voice,
Yeah.
and you're guilty, or
Yeah.
you're don't see your kids for 2 weeks, or so you really have to be on your best behavior, and it's helpful. I wish I had it. It's helpful to have someone like me, not necessarily me, but like me, objective, experienced,
Yeah.
listens pretty well, moderately intelligent, to say, wait a second, don't do that. Don't do that. So
Well,
it's not rocket science. But what I do is very simple. It's just challenging to do on your own in the
that
shit, you know.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's experience. I always tell someone that, "Hey, well, can you tell me?" I'm like, "Well, I can definitely tell you what not to do. I don't know if I can tell you what to do, but I can definitely tell you what not to do. So if you wanna hear those 20 items, here we go. Here, I'll write them
Yeah.
down for you, bud."
Well,
So,
Brad, it's a great distinction, and my co-host Jim says it all the time. I don't give advice anymore. I make observations,
yeah,
and I'll tell you what worked for me, and I'll tell you what didn't work for me. But
yeah,
as far as deciding what you should do, that's on you, right?
absolutely.
Because advice is bullshit. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
observations are facts. You know,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you've been amazing, man. I love the work you're doing. Not only from just coaching men and mentoring men, and I do think back to the statistics. Unfortunately, with divorce, it's on the rise. I don't think it's on decline, and I think it's an unfortunate thing that happens. But I think people need someone who have gone through the experience and have the advice, maybe not all the answers, but to get someone through. And I'm not a gender against a gender or a race against a race. I don't that shit bores me. I think they use that as
yeah,
propaganda to get the masses all stirred up. But men do need someone that at least can listen to them and give them not maybe not get advice, but their life experiences on how they dealt with it to get them through. And it's a real thing. So
yeah. No, you're right. The stats are all. I mean, the stats for men: depression, alcoholism, addiction, incarceration, anxiety. They're all up and up and up and up.
yeah,
And I think most of it is just it's due to confusion. And one of the gifts that I'm able to give to anyone, because it's anybody can give it if they want, is just clarity. Like, what is that? What are my options? What does that mean? What do I do here? And clarity with regard to objectivity. And
yeah,
yeah, and those resources don't exist for men. So I'm happy to be in the space. And I think it's probably before we close, relevant for me to say I don't take the guy who's contemplating and try to convince him of anything, because
yeah,
I will tell 100% of people, if you can fix it, fix it. It's usually a lot of work, and it's hard.
yeah,
It's not easy to fix because it's hard to break, but
yeah,
fix it. I'm not that guy that says, "Come on over here and I'll talk you through a divorce." No, that's your call, not mine.
yeah, yeah. And it's there's always when there's two parties involved. Hey, could I be better? Could she be better? Could we be better? Could whatever. I mean, there's some cases where it's not an option, right? And those are unfortunate. But you're
Yeah.
still, if that's not an option, you're still about to go through all the things you just mentioned,
Yes.
regardless. You're
Yes.
still gonna it doesn't matter who is right, who is wrong, who's crazy, who's not crazy, who's whatever, who is infidelity or whatever it was. That point where you take that step, I know from a lot of my friends, it's some rough waters,
It
right?
is. It is.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a I think it's something that inflicts us all in today's society, but it's always I can think of no business example where this doesn't fly. Being a father, it plays. Being a mother, I'm sure it plays. Being a brother, being a son, being divorced or not divorced, it's like, and we're getting bad at this, and that is conversation. That is discussion with people with whom you disagree, and the ability to do that with some level of civility and kindness. So you're not asking for the person's dignity. You're not trying to embarrass anybody. You're
Yeah.
not trying to win an argument. You're
Yeah.
just trying to investigate and learn. And when one party or both parties don't have the ability to have that discussion, that's when things break down. And that's true of that's relationships, it's business, it's everything.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
strive to I have developed a desire to continue to strive to ask questions instead of make emphatic statements. And I consciously go into conversations with people with whom I believe I may disagree, not trying to win. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm not trying to win, but I would be very interested to try and understand what you mean by that, or where you arrived or how you arrived at that position. I'd be very curious about that. And I think that those are just techniques. And I've been doing it my whole life. So I've had a lot of practice. It's like questions instead of statements, and investigation instead of conquest, you know?
Right. Right. And somebody's win is someone else's loss and vice versa. Right. I mean, we've got, it's just kind of in our context is the way that we talk, winning and losing, winning and losing. I can tell you some things in life, nobody wins and nobody loses.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But
No, it's
there's
true.
definitely there's impacts both sides, some negative, some positive, but anyways, that's just
Well, you
the
know,
way
one of these lines is I like, and I'll conclude with this if we're ready to wrap up. And that is, to your point about division, you know, I am an Irish Catholic, middle-aged, conservative male. Do you know what else that tells you about me? Not a fucking thing. You know,
well,
you want to
well,
know? Ask.
yeah. Well, I agree. I'll close on this. It's kind of the whole how life is a funny thing, and
Mhm.
I tell this story, not because to bring attention, but how I thought my life. I was raised by Mike Banyas and Louise Slaughter, and I had a brother and sister, and this was my life, and this is where they were from, and these were my grandparents, and this is whatever. And at 53, I found out I was adopted. And it was the greatest thing ever because I still love my parents were awesome. They're gone now, but they were the greatest thing. But I went into a lot of deep thought on that,
I
right?
bet.
Because this is who you are or who you think you are or who,
Mhm.
your life experiences or who your ancestors are or who your cousins are. And in one moment, I didn't take it as negative, but like I call it the beautiful lie. I'm like, well, I mean, technically, that's not true, right?
Yeah.
I call it the
Yeah.
beautiful lie. But in the awesomeness of the divine creator, it was amazing and a miracle, and I'll take it every day. So my point is, sometimes you think you're this, and this is the way life is, and this is who you are. And the reality of the good Lord can come down and say, all right, you asked who you are. Here's who you are. So I'm going to leave on that. Nothing's predictable in life, kids. Enjoy your life. Be a good person regardless. But hey, Mark, you've been amazing, and I love what you're doing. And I just felt that, hey, men out there need somebody to turn to help them kind of discover, the things about them that maybe they need someone else to mentor them or pull it out. And you seem like a pretty good guy after talking to you for 50 minutes or so. So I really appreciate you being on the
No,
show.
thank you, Brad. I think I will just add one thing, and that is that because a lot of guys they're scared about this step, or they're intimidated by talking to someone about such private things. Not only am I interested and very compassionate about that, but I facilitate that by offering everybody a free 30-minute phone call with me where we just ask questions of one another, and I basically try and dissuade them from paying me for my services because you need to be ready. So
Yeah.
it's not a challenging first impression. It's very soft. It's very gentle. It's candid, but I'll tell you if I can help you, and I'll tell you if I can't. And if I can, I'll tell you how. So there's no, the first step should be easy. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
Well, I love it, and I think that's great. You know, guys, as we all know from the stereotypes of them, are not typically very open and very cautious in what they do. So I think that's awesome. And if you're out there, you're going through this process, or you're kind of looking for that next career, right, or mentor, give Mark a call. But Mark, I've enjoyed it, brother. I
Me
think
too.
you and I would be friends, and we could drink some of that Catholic wine on a Sunday at mass. So I appreciate that.
I'll go with the Irish whiskey, but I'm with you, brother. I'm
All
with
right,
you.
I'll take the. All right, I'm going to pass. I'm going to go with the whiskey. I'm not a big wine guy. So.
Hey, Brad, thank you so much for having me. That was a blast.
Yeah, it's a good time, man. Thank you.
All right. See you.